Hi, welcome. Today I want to talk to you about The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. He wrote about 50 books and he is seen as the father of science fiction together with Mary Shelley and Jules Verne. He had a background in science and he studied biology under a man who was very much influenced by Darwin's theory of evolution. Wells was a socialist and he wanted world peace and free education. The War of the Worlds was published in 1898 and it was one of the first novels that was published about intelligent life coming to Earth. It is set in the south of England, mostly around Surrey and London. It is said that there was a massive panic attack among the people when in 1938 they broadcasted this on the radio, and it felt so real to so many people, and it is said that it caused a major panic. So I want to go into my personal thoughts and opinions about the book. We read this with the book club and it was a lot of fun discussing this one. So I'm going to go over some general thoughts that I jotted down here. I would recommend getting yourself an edition with footnotes, like Penguin Classics, Oxford World's Classics. You could, of course, always read the novel on the Gutenberg Project, which is completely free. However, there are a lot of biblical references, and I felt like I really needed the footnotes to explain them to me. The writing style of Wells isn't really my cup of tea. I have once read The Invisible Man and I think I felt the same about that one. He has a very dry writing style, and in this one, in The War of the Worlds, it felt like reading a report. It felt very report and journal-like. I had so little emotion and feeling with the characters. A lot of them, like most of them actually, remain nameless. The main character is also nameless. So the two most important characters are the main character and his brother, who both remain nameless. And the narrator, we decided to call him Tom because of the movie adaptation with Tom Cruise. So we called him Tom. And I always feel like when characters remain nameless in a story, it makes it so much more difficult to discuss the book. So we decided to name him Tom. I'm also going to proceed and name him Tom during the rest of this review. So while the characters remain nameless, there are so many place names in this story, so many. We also get very detailed descriptions. Let me give you an example here in my Oxford Worlds edition on page 150. And I really appreciated these detailed descriptions. So it says, eastward over the blackened ruins of the Albert Terrace and the splintered spire of the church, the sun blazed dazzling in a clear sky. And here and there some facet in the great wilderness of roofs caught the light and glared with a white intensity. It touched even that round store place for wines by the Chalk Farm station, and the vast railway yards, marked once with a graining of black rails, but red-lined now with a quick rusting of a fortnight's disuse, with something of the mystery of beauty. I also want to read you the first line because this line is a perfect example of how an author can set the tone and what the reader is about to expect when you enter a new story. So he goes, no one would have believed in the last years of the 19th century that human affairs were being watched keenly and closely by intelligences greater than man's and yet as mortal as his own, that as men busied themselves about their affairs, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. He often compares humans with ants because that is how these tripods, these machines, these Martians look at humans. We are just ants. We mean nothing to them, and this gets repeated a lot throughout the novel. So we get vivid and detailed descriptions, very report-like. There are a lot of his style is full of short sentences. It's very easy to read. And our narrator, Tom, is a very, I want to say, out-of-the-box character because he is not behaving like a main character. He is, in my opinion, rather passive. And when the Martians attacked Earth, I kind of was expecting Tom to undertake action, to do something, to fight against these Martians, but actually the characters are just kind of running away from them, trying to survive. It's also clear that Wells found inspiration in Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest, so it might be interesting for you to look into the theory while you are reading this book because it goes hand in hand. There are some horror elements to be found here. Some descriptions and events are really grim. To give you an example, and this is just a very, very minor spoiler, but the Martians use human blood to survive, okay? So that's something like really grim, right? When the Martians arrive at Earth, they come in these capsules, and when they fall onto the Earth, they create a crater. And in the beginning, no one worries. Like, life goes on. Nobody really cares about these Martians. They'll just deal with it. There are only a couple of them. They're stuck in their craters, so no worries. And then at a certain point, the Martians start firing their heat rays to the people that pass by. And so more Martians start to arrive. And then after a very long while, in my opinion, panic starts to grip the people. And people panic rather late in this story because they feel like they have control. They feel like they will wipe away these Martians without a problem. I must admit that I did not like the ending. From a biology perspective, it makes complete sense, and I cannot criticize the way that Wells handled his ending. However, I did feel a little bit disappointed because it was a very easy ending. I'd almost say a lazy ending, but that doesn't feel right to say because it's, it fits. But I guess I just expected a little bit more action, a little bit more surprise. Now, I want to read a passage and I want to see if you can guess what Wells was criticizing at the time. And before we judge of them too harshly, we must remember what ruthless and utter destruction of our own species has wrought, not only upon animals such as the vanished bison and the dodo, but upon its inferior races. The Tasmanians, in spite of their human likeness, were entirely swept out of existence in a war of extermination waged by European immigrants in the space of 50 years. I think it is very clear what Wells is criticizing here. He is criticizing colonialism. And he wrote this at a time while the British Empire was colonizing other parts of the world. I would say that this is a core theme of the story, and that meant that he put little to no effort in creating deep and complex characters that a reader could care about, because humans are really utterly meaningless. There's also this line that I marked that also is connected to the ideas that I talked about. Never before in the history of warfare had destruction been so indiscriminate and so universal. And what about this line? Surely, if we have learned nothing else, this war has taught us pity. Pity for those witless souls that suffer our dominion. These lines just tell you all that you need to know about his ideas. If you decide to track anything during your read of The War of the Worlds, if you decide to read it, I would say track everything that has to do with him criticizing colonialism. There is a lot to be found in this book, and I think it's very interesting to zoom in on those parts. So overall, I did enjoy reading The War of the Worlds. It's a very quick and easy read, and I would recommend it to everyone who is interested in science fiction. if you love the genre, then you cannot miss one of the first novels about intelligent life, because this is where it started. It got so many adaptations, and Wells inspired so many science fiction authors with The War of the Worlds. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next week. Any spoilers, so Toulouse, Toulouse, Toulouse.